Hey everyone, and welcome back to Off-Grid Smart Home. Today I will be reviewing both the Level Lock and the Level Lock Touch. While I'm using smart tech to make our off-grid home more efficient, smart locks themselves aren't really going to help achieve that. They're battery powered, they connect to an existing hub that's inside the house, so no additional power draw, and it doesn't really increase the efficiency of the house in any way. They are just a convenient item that takes away that sort of anxiety of did I lock the door, did I not lock the door, and also helps with the convenience of the auto unlock features. Choosing our smart lock was one of the first decisions we had to make in the home. Obviously the builders were putting the doors on and we needed something. So I had done a lot of research over which locks might be best, and there's lots of pros and cons of various locks out there. In the end, I ended up landing on the Level Lock. It had seemed to have had a number of good reviews, but there are a few main reasons I really liked it. Number one, the lock system actually fits inside your regular locks. So aesthetically, you can't even tell it's a smart lock. Thumbs up from me. Number two, it works with both Apple HomeKit and Amazon's Smart Assistant, so another thumbs up. And finally, the Level Lock Touch Edition also has NFC compatibility. So that's, provides good functionality, and B, I'm hoping with some software updates that maybe it will work with Apple's HomeKey. So fingers crossed on that. Both the Level Lock and the Level Lock Touch are super easy to install, which wasn't one of the main reasons behind making the choice, but it is an added benefit. The Level Lock Touch actually comes with some added functionality as well. So we actually positioned this one on our front door, and what I really like is when you leave the house, you can just hold your finger on the lock and it will trigger the door to lock itself. Kind of gives you the added confidence that it did lock successfully. You can hear it audibly work. Equally, an automation will do the same thing, but it is nice just to have that confidence when you're leaving the house. Equally, when you're arriving home, you can do the same. However, I actually do use an automation for that, and it almost seems to work every single time and have the door unlocked before I get to the door. In addition, the Level Lock Touch also has NFC cards and keychain tags, so you could give them to a family member or a friend or somebody visiting for a while, and they don't need to worry about installing the app on their phone or setting that up. They can just use the card very much like you would in the hotel, and I think that's some really great added functionality that you don't get on many locks. So this is one of my 4 level locks. This is on my dining room door, and as you can tell, it really looks just like a regular bolt lock. The mechanism is on the inside. You can still turn to lock and unlock automatically. And you can still use the key functionality there. It is a magnet system on the inside rather than a physical bolt and mechanism, but yeah, very simple to use. Here we are in the Level app, and you can see my 4 door locks there. I'm just going to click and hold on the dining room door, and you can see that it locks the door no problem. And then same thing to unlock, click and hold, and the door will start unlocking. Any second now. There you go. So now we're in the Apple Home app, and you'll see my same 4 locks here. If I click on the dining room, we'll start unlocking. Very similar to the Level Lock app. There it is unlocked, but you'll see in the app here, it does still say that it's unlocking and it takes a little bit of time to update. Still going. Still going. And this is one of the small frustrations with the Apple Home integration. It does take a long time sometimes to update the app. The door itself is unlocked, but the app itself is still going. There we go. It has finally unlocked. Okay, so here I am walking to my front door. Just put the shoes on. Leave through the front door. Shut it behind me. And just hold my finger on top for it to lock. And there you have it, super convenient. Now this is the Level Lock key card. I'm gonna see if I can get it to unlock and let me in. There we go, a bit of a delay, but it worked. So now we're going to get into the pros and cons of the Level Lock. Lots of great things, but there are a couple of downsides as well and some problems I've been having. But let's start with the positives. Pro number one is compatibility. It works with both the Amazon Home Assistant and it also works with Apple HomeKit. So as you know, that's how I'm building my smart home and that's the main infrastructure I'm using. So I intentionally selected some smart locks that work with those two main smart home systems. Pro number two is the aesthetics. The Level Lock itself, like I mentioned, is actually hidden inside your normal bolt lock. So from that perspective, you and anybody else can't actually tell you're using a smart lock, which is fantastic. Level Lock Touch, this one, as I've already shown, isn't installed within your existing lock, but it is made to look very similar. And a huge positive for me was that, you and anybody else couldn't identify these as smart locks. Pro number three is the NFC compatibility and functionality. So I already like using it with the touch of my finger to lock or unlock the door, mainly to lock it. The key cards that you can use are really beneficial, especially when you have guests staying. You can simplify it. I use it for my dad when he visits. He can really understand and easily use the key card, and we don't have to worry about installing an app on his phone and getting it to work that way. However, as of right now, we cannot use the Level Lock with Apple HomeKey. But in theory, with my limited knowledge of how it works, the technology is built into the Level Lock Touch. So I know I can only hope, but I'm hoping for a software update where suddenly it will enable it, because if they don't do that, then I think it's really a missed opportunity, and I think that will actually have my favorite functionality, which might even sort of override me having some automations, just so I can come up to the door and either tap my phone or tap my Apple Watch to have the door lock and unlock. So it is a pro that it has the NFC functionality built in. But is the Apple HomeKey functionality gonna come through or not? I don't know. Level, I'd love to hear if you're gonna do it. Pro number four is the auto lock and unlock functionality. It just seems to work really well. I've set the radius from my house to sort of, I think, 200 meters, and it just works. It's really nice to come home and the door starts unlocking. Finally, pro number 5 is the general reliability. So far, so good with the Level Lock and the Level Lock Touch. I've had very few issues. Most of them have been resolved, and it seems to work pretty consistently and is quite reliable. So, 2 thumbs up for reliability. Now we get into the cons list, and there are a few of them, I'm afraid. I still really like these locks, but they're not perfect, and I am hoping to see improvements both in software and future hardware from Level. So to kick things off with con number 1, we have a weak Bluetooth signal. So these locks do run off Bluetooth, which is one of my least favorite smart home connectivity methods. It just doesn't have great range from whichever hub you're using, and I find that it does have reliability issues sometimes. Now, I selected to use my Apple TV 4K as my home hub, and that is therefore what contacts the locks via Bluetooth. Equally, if you don't link it to your Apple TV or Amazon, then it does actually use your phone for Bluetooth connectivity, which is fine if you're nearby, but if you want to remotely, or if you're not even in the house and you want to connect to your house, then using your phone is not going to work. So using the hub is a necessity. However, I have 4 of these locks in my house, and 3 of them are within Bluetooth range and seem to work well and relatively reliable. I have my mudroom, which is on the other side of the house, and that one certainly is less reliable. And actually, I went through a spell where I would say it had no response about 90 to 95% of the time. So that led me to purchasing an Apple HomePod Mini. I'm not using Siri as my smart home voice assistant, so it's a little bit redundant, other than essentially it's a Bluetooth transmitter or extender. But I actually have that positioned sort of about 10 to 15 feet away from my mudroom door, and it has improved connectivity a lot. That said, in Apple Home, I do still get no response errors relatively frequently. That might be harsh, it's not daily, it's not even weekly sometimes, but it's more often than I would want. My instinct though is it's not actually a criticism of the Level Lock, and it's actually an error or an issue with Apple HomeKit. The resolution or the fix to these no response errors seems to be to unplug my Apple HomePod Mini or my TV and plug them back in. And that seems to solve the connection error, and they start working again. So initially, the connectivity issue was due to Bluetooth and the range of the lock, but since then, I've purchased the HomePod Mini. It's closer. It has improved it, but I still get that no response sometimes. That could be a HomeKit error. Con number 2 is actually related to Bluetooth as well, and it's the fact that when you hit lock or unlock on your phone, it takes quite a long time to actually trigger the lock to do it. Sometimes it's quicker than others, but you'll press the button, you might have to wait 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 9 or 10 seconds for the lock to actually start working. Not so much of an issue if you're trying to lock a door you forgot to lock remotely or anything else, but I would like it to be a little bit more snappy and start working that little bit quicker. In contrast, some of my Thread devices work instantly. and I'd really like to see thread functionality added to the level lock and some other smart home locks, because it's not very common right now. Fingers crossed we see that coming later this year, and especially with the introduction of Matter, but we will see. Con number 3 in my list is that it doesn't seem like you can actually expose the level lock to both Apple HomeKit and the Amazon Smart Home Assistant at the same time. And that drives me crazy. I'm building my smart home setup using both smart home assistants. One, because Apple HomeKit has the visual user interface that's more attractive and easier to use, but Amazon has, in my opinion, the better, more robust voice assistant. And I want to set up duplicate routines and skills, and it just doesn't seem possible. So please let me know if somebody's figured that out. As of right now, I have it hooked up with Apple HomeKit. It works well, but it's not quite there. Con number 4 is actually probably more of a con of Apple HomeKit, but there's a few frustrations that do bother me. I've mentioned number 1, it's the no response error, where you have to unplug and plug back in your HomePod Mini or your Apple TV. Number 2 is it takes a long time for the graphic in the app to update that your lock has either locked or unlocked. I said it takes a few seconds to actually start turning the lock, yes, but beyond that, it takes another 5 to 10 seconds to actually update the status of the app. A mild frustration, but a frustration nonetheless. Finally, con number 5 actually isn't much of a con for me, but I have heard this feedback about the lock. It gets some criticism for both using magnets to lock and unlock the bolt, and then the construction of the actual bolt itself has been criticized because it is hollow with a battery inside, and some say that's not as strong. Sure, I get that. I'm sure it's not as secure as some very well-built door locks. That said, if you look at my locks here, it doesn't bother me. It takes away sort of the opportunistic burglar coming in who just sees if your door's locked or unlocked. So it stops that person just walking in. And then number 2, if we're talking about kicking a door down and this lock not being as secure, then I think that individual's probably going to be just as happy smashing a window anyway. For me, it locks the door. I can't get in when the doors are locked, and I'm still happy with it. So if that's a concern of yours, you might factor it in as a weakness of the level lock, but for me, actually not too much of an issue. So that is the pro and con list for both the level lock and the level lock touch. Overall, I really like these products. They look great. They seem to be pretty reliable, albeit for the Apple HomeKit issues, which are occasional. And it has all the functionality I want in a smart lock. So I give this a whopping 4 thumbs out of 5. The only things I would improve right now are adding in that Apple HomeKey functionality, which fingers crossed is coming. And then the reliability with Apple HomeKit and being able to use Apple's HomeKit and Amazon's Smart Home Assistant at the same time. Otherwise, love these. I definitely recommend them. And yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Off Grid Smart Home. Please click like if you enjoyed this product review. And please also click subscribe to follow this channel and see more videos about all of the smart tech that I decide to add into my house, as well as how I start using that smart technology to make our off-grid home more efficient. See you next time.